Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is in the world that you're tuning in from. Welcome to Live with Marketers. This is our award-winning LinkedIn Live broadcast series exploring everything that's top of mind for marketers right now. This broadcast is obviously no exception, talking about broadcast fatigue. And we always bring on just the brightest minds in the B2B arena to come and talk to you. So I'm your host, Alex Duran. I'm a senior content marketing manager at LinkedIn, and today I'm broadcasting to you from my apartment in San Francisco, hopefully back in the studio soon, though. A couple of housekeeping notes. We leave around 10 minutes at the end for questions. We'll do a live Q&A, so feel free to submit your questions as they come up throughout. We will also have a survey at the end. We'd really appreciate it if you took just 5 minutes of your time to let us know how we did and any future topics that you'd like us to address that would make your life and job easier. Also, this will be recorded, so no worries if you have to hop off at any point in time. And also, we're throwing in something new for this broadcast. We're incentivizing questions with LinkedIn swag. That is correct. We will pick one lucky winner who submits a question to get a coveted LinkedIn hoodie, and take my word for it, they're super cozy. Okay, so the topic today is live stream fatigue. This is something that we're very familiar with. I'm feeling it, you're feeling it, and I wouldn't even, in the end, it's kind of ironic that we're addressing the topic of live stream fatigue with a live stream, but I wouldn't be doing it unless I had the most amazing video experts to come on the show and share with you maybe some best practices and tips that you haven't heard quite yet. So now it's my pleasure to welcome today's speakers. We have Goldie Chan, who's head of community at Lightrix and the #1 video creator on LinkedIn, guys. She's also been voted a LinkedIn top voice a couple of different years. So we're basically in the presence of stardom. And then we also have Stephen A. Hart. He's the director of new media content at the Sands Institute. He's also the creator of a top-rated podcast called Trailblazer.fm, which delves into bold conversations with brilliant Black self-driven founders, best-selling authors, and passionate leaders. So that being said, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourselves and, as is custom here at LinkedIn, share something that is not on your LinkedIn profile. And we'll do ladies first, so go ahead, Goldie.
So hello, everyone. I'm Goldie Chan, and it is such a pleasure to be joining everyone from my amazing live stream studio here in sunny Los Angeles. And something that is not currently on my LinkedIn profile is in my early 20s, I started a fashion brand that won awards and was my first entrepreneurial venture. It didn't go well, but I think that we can all learn from our failures. And I want to, of course, thank the entire LinkedIn team working on this broadcast as well today.
Thank you. Well, I think that your fashion style is top notch. So I think you should give it another go if this whole marketing thing doesn't work out. Stephen, over to you.
100% agree with that. Thank you so much for having me, Alex. I'm Stephen Hart, and I am, as Alex shared, a big lover of podcasts, but I'm most proud to be the husband to Kristen of over 13 years. And together, I like to share that we have two amazing crumb snatchers. We have a 11-year-old daughter named Layla and her son, who's 7, Nigel.
I love that. I also love the lemonade and cookies sign in the background. Is that available for digital purchase?
I told her she had to actually sell enough lemonade and cookies to buy her backpack when she was going into kindergarten. And so that's memorabilia.
You're setting her on that entrepreneurial journey super, super soon.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, we're super grateful that you both took the time to be here today. I'm very excited for this conversation, not only for the audience to get some golden nuggets of info, but also just for myself to better understand what are the tips that you guys have. So let's start off with a poll question to the audience. We just want to get a feel for where you're at in terms of live streaming. So are you live streaming on LinkedIn? A, yes, a lot. B, sometimes. C, no, but we plan to. Or D, it's not currently in our content marketing plan. Now we'll give you a couple of seconds to respond. Goldie, Stephen, what are the predictions? What do you think we're going to hear?
I feel like we're going to hear a lot of sometimes. And then I love this very polite answer that is option D, which is not in our current marketing plan. So
yes, aka no, not at all.
I think they might say no, but would like to.
Okay.
Yes.
Well intentioned.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So the answers we have coming in first is no, but we plan to. Second, it's not currently in our content marketing plan. So maybe they're on this broadcast today just to better understand what live broadcasting can do for their brand. Followed by sometimes, and the coming in fourth is yes, a lot. So kind of all over the board. And if you said yes, a lot, we're hoping that maybe you'll hear something on this broadcast you haven't already heard about live broadcasting, since you guys are already pros. So let's talk about the current state of broadcasting a little bit. Just some internal LinkedIn data for you guys. So 6.3 million members attended virtual events on LinkedIn following the launch of LinkedIn events in early 2020. LinkedIn live streams have increased 89% since March of this year. And LinkedIn live videos are working. So the videos get on average 7 times more reactions, 24 times more comments than just native video that is produced by the same broadcasters. So Goldie and Stephen, is this consistent with what you're seeing? Like, what's your take on the current state of broadcasting as it stands? And Stephen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. This year, I have doubled down, tripled down on live streams. And between personal streams, I go live 2 to 3 times a week personally, as well as with SANS, within the SANS Institute. I'm managing live streams, producing and managing streams on a number of different channels. And that is definitely in alignment with what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a 10x increase in reach, and probably a 20x plus increase in engagement within LinkedIn over other social media platforms.
Well, that's great to hear. And I did not pay him to say that. Over to you.
Yes, I think we're seeing really similar results in that, as some of you might know, I've been a big fan of native video on LinkedIn. And this year I've switched over at least a portion of my content plan for my personal brand over to live streams. And that certainly has definitely increased engagement. And what I've noticed is when I do my very focused Build Your Brand live stream series, I am getting these great questions about branding that then, of course, I can use to create other content, which I think we'll go into a little bit later, but it has increased engagement a ton.
Yeah, and so if you haven't checked out, Goldie is a LinkedIn learning instructor, and she actually has a plethora, I'll say, one of my favorite words, of amazing videos to go check out. One is specifically around video and branding. So yeah, I'm really excited because I want to get both of your takes on personal broadcasting versus professional, as I'm sure that's like kind of top of mind for some of the folks on the line as well. And then I'm excited later to talk about ROI, because I feel like some folks who haven't gotten to video quite yet are wondering how to measure it. Right now, we're seeing that 73% of B2B marketers say that video positively impacts marketing or ROI. That's stat is actually from Hootsuite. So we know that it's impacting. How do we measure it? All right, but first is probably backing up a little bit and thinking about who you're trying to reach with your video. So defining your audience before you create the content to make sure that your content is super audience first. So Goldie, do you have any tips around that?
Yes, so we want to make sure that we are getting ROI with our wonderful LinkedIn Lives. And the first way to go about that is to clearly define your audience demographic. For example, say you are an amazing product manager and you want to make sure that your live stream series is also helpful for other product managers. Now, you've just defined your audience, or say you're a product manager in the automotive industry. So your defined audience is everyone who works or is interested in the automotive industry. By clearly defining your demographics for your live stream, you can make sure that your ROI later is both measurable and tied into your goals. And of course, another 3-letter word we like, KPI.
Yeah. Are you ever worried about potentially creating content that's a little bit too niche or hyper targeted?
You know, I have to say that the more niche, the better, just because you want to make sure that if you are, say, doing a series on building your brand, you want to know that your show is focused. There's a reason why people are tuning into your show on branding as opposed to, say, other people's shows on brandings. And also, and I'm sure Stephen can speak to this, when you're working with the brand, the more targeted and focused that live stream is, the better, because then the audience knows, for say example, when I work with Adobe, that they will get a great live stream on B2B marketing for high-level creative CEOs.
100% agree with Goldie on that. And, I often say on the messaging side as well, if you confuse, you lose. So the more defined your audience is the more clear you're going to be in speaking just to that group of people and understanding, yes, to your point, Alex, you're going to repel everyone else, and you have to be okay and comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that if your content is for everyone, it's really for no one. So I asked the hyper-targeting question because I was curious. I think maybe hyper-targeting with your ads is a little bit different than hyper-targeting with your broadcasts. So yeah, I think you wanna find your people, your niche. Okay, so we figure out who our audience is. Then we determine our goals, then we create our video content or start to build what we want our live stream to be about. Seems like the right way to go about things. What about some content ideas that you might be able to share? We've seen a lot of different types of broadcasts. So do you have any fresh ideas or things that you see that are working and doing well? And that might be different for personal versus professional.
Yeah, I personally, I have been testing that quite a bit. So on the personal side, I try to go live 3 times a week consistently at 8 a.m. in the morning. On Mondays, I'm traditionally doing a solo show for 15 minutes. On Wednesday, I've begun doing more of a panel style conversation. And then on Fridays, a traditional, what would have been my podcast, having an interview with one other person. That generally goes 45 minutes to the hour. And so I'm trying different types of content on the personal side, as well as professionally within SANS. We'll do the same. We'll try different angles. We do quite a bit of panel style discussions, which tend to perform better oftentimes because you're leveraging more people in the stream who are sharing that stream out to their respective networks and bringing more reach, if you will, and by doing so, obviously more engagement.
So I personally love evergreen streams, as I call them. And what I define as an evergreen stream is something that shows expertise, but you could go back to that same live stream a week, a month, maybe not a year from now, and it would still be relevant. And I love what Stephen is saying about panels, because panels work great. So do interviews. And I know for some of you out there who are a little hesitant to add in live streams to your content plans, it's helpful to have another person on your stream. It makes it easier to do longer live streams as well. But yes, I think demonstrating your expertise in your field is a great way to start thinking about how you can create live streams or develop your live streams even further.
Yeah, I love the idea of evergreen video because then, the investment lives on and gives back. Stephen, you said that you guys broadcast around 3 times a week at IB, 3 times a week? Yeah, 3 times a week at IBM. Are you seeing fatigue? Do you see drop off as the week goes on?
So no, actually, so at SANS, I mean, we stream to many different curriculums within the company throughout the course of the week, and no, we don't see that drop off. They're, to Goldie's earlier point, different streams are targeting different groups, so we're not always speaking to the exact same curriculum or the exact same group of job roles, if you will. And so we're able to speak to different groups on different channels within the company, and it works quite well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like both of the speakers here are saying, like, just talk about what you know. That's the best way to organically create a live stream and have it come across as authentic. And that way you're kind of becoming a thought leader in your own field.
I think to maybe add one point to that is when you're stepping into live stream, embrace that this is not a one-way feed, right? So as opposed to delivering a webinar where you're speaking to your audience for 45 minutes and then taking questions at the end, with a live stream, I'm much more engaged right from the jump. And having that mindset that that's going to happen, you want to frame content for a much shorter period of time to allow for that engagement to take place.
Yeah, and I want to add something as well, which is if you don't know what you're talking about, but you want to be known as an expert in that field, that's when it's a great time to bring on guests who are experts. And that helps elevate your brand reputation as well.
Exactly. Yeah, the influencer glow effect. That's my strategy. That's why I have you guys here today. Okay, so let's delve into a little bit of broadcast best practices. We can break it down into general. We can also talk about, maybe we want to talk about general and then before, during, and after, because there's so much that you can do. And like Stephen said, this is not meant to be a one-way conversation. It's meant to be engaging. So, okay, let's start with some general best practices. Goldie, I will ask you that question first.
Oh, goodness. I always love to be first up. So my first thing is, of course, really piggybacking off of what I said earlier about evergreen content being amazing. I also like series-based content. And the reason why I like this specifically for LinkedIn, because we are on LinkedIn right now, is you can tie a hashtag to that series. So if you're someone wonderful like Stephen, who is also on this broadcast and has to manage multiple live streams, you can have a different hashtag for each series. But those hashtags might make sense together. So it might be build with SANS, it might be learn with SANS, and you have similar hashtags that apply to your different live streams.
Yes, I love that. We have a hashtag Live with Marketers. If anyone, shameless plug, if anyone's interested in following the different broadcasts that we've done. What about frequency and cadence? I'll ask Stephen this just because it sounds like you guys are broadcasting at a more, you're kind of testing more with frequency and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it helps, just like it with any other content, right? When we go to watch a TV show, we know that show is going to come on at a specific time on a specific day. And I think it works really well to make sure you establish a cadence, right? So if that's once a month, that's fine. If it's once every week, that's good. If it's daily, that's fine. Just stick to a time and commit to doing that. That would be my recommendation. And, tying in well with what Goldie just mentioned about the series-based content, I think, the two marry well together.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. If you think about like your favorite show, before Netflix times, your favorite show, you know when to tune in, and you're there like every Thursday at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. like looking for the new show to air. So it would be a little bit tricky to kind of like gain momentum if it's sporadic. So completely agree with that. What about going live more than once in a day? No, yes, maybe.
So I'm going to jump in and say this is a no-no, only because you don't want to, and we are literally talking about this as the subject of this live stream, you don't want to fatigue your audience. And by going live multiple times in a day, unless this is what you have already agreed on, say you will definitely do 2 shows a day on Monday, and your audience knows they are 2 pretty different shows as well. Most audiences don't want to tune in twice a day to the same show.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What about one of our best practices that we've been maybe rethinking a little is avoiding pre-recorded videos, especially if you say that you're going to go live. Stephen, what do you think about that?
I have actually been testing this. So within SANS, we have many different curriculums within the company. And what we've found is that there are smaller channels. So the main SANS Institute channel has 200,000 followers. But some of our smaller channels don't have as big a following. And so what we've been testing is going live on our larger channel and then restreaming to our curriculum channel to help build that following in that channel at a different time. Also, sometimes it makes sense because we're global to be able to restream that broadcast to MPAC or Europe at a different time of the day, maybe a day following. So we've seen actually really good results doing that. And the one thing we've been encouraging is if we have guests, we let them know, hey, we're going to rebroadcast on this day and time. If you're able and available to hop into the comments and engage with our community while that's happening, that allows for any questions that are popping up to still receive a response. But we're still seeing,
you're essentially having a moderator in the chat to make sure there's still engagement.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That was answering my next question, which was going to be it's a great idea to redistribute the recorded video because it's unlikely that, your entire audience saw it the first time. And since it is so valuable, like, why not show it to them again? But that was going to be my question of like, if it's live and it's supposed to be a 2-way conversation, how do you manage that? So that's definitely a great workaround. In addition to those, I think we talked a little bit about testing. So testing, you can test video length. We'll talk about objectives a little bit later, but I feel like video length is tied to what your objective is and your topic, all of that. Obviously being prepared, consistent, flexible, and having fun with it. There is a little bit of a risk going live. Like my doorbell just went off a little while ago. My dog might bark, and we just all have to have compassion for each other because this is the world that we live in now. What about any other tips, Stephen? Like time, day?
To the point you just made, I'll just add to this. You have to get comfortable. If you've not gone live yet, embrace the mindset that you're going to be comfortable being bad until it gets good, right? So live stream, something's going to go wrong, and you just have to be open to embracing that. And your community will actually appreciate the authenticity of you being able to roll with the punches.
Yeah, the vulnerability that
Yes.
you have, that we're all experiencing right now.
I've been in a live a couple of weeks ago, and a guest was talking, and while she's talking, a fly just pitched on her nose. And she spots the fly, and fly comes back, and it's live. What are you gonna do?
A little Mike Pence moment. Oh, that is funny.
But I think you just have to embrace all that comes with a live, and I think you were touching on figuring out other elements of the live and setting that up. And I think one of the things that is really important right now is being able to get very clear about how you title, how you describe the stream, and things like hashtags that you're using, right? As well as the branding around it. One of the things we've started doing that's different than what we did with our webcasts is we've started creating a separate thumbnail for the video that's different than the promo card that we're going to use. Typically, we'd use one for both, but we're finding that thumbnails are so very important. You really want to have an image that pops with a very clear headline, but you don't really want too much other copy. So we're looking at that, and then we're looking at, the titling and the description, making sure that our keywords pop, and you have some high-level keywords and hashtags and so on.
That is definitely important to think about. Do you have any insight into what time works best, what day works best? We have a lot of questions in the feed around that. I'm not sure if there's a silver bullet answer, but figured I'd throw it out there.
The metrics still aren't yet clear. I'm sure Goldie would probably agree. You need to really think about when your audience is going to be online. So I have been deliberate to get in front of my audience right before they start their workday at 8 or 8:30 in the morning. But generally, looking at other social platforms that show me a heat map of time somebody is going to be online, I tend to look at putting streams in, for SANS between 10 in the morning on the East Coast and about 3 in the afternoon. So still playing with that, but there's no concrete response to exactly, a magic bullet on what time will definitely work for you.
I know.
I think if we listed one time right now, everyone would have live stream during that time. And break LinkedIn Live. So we don't want that. But
we would just further contribute to the fatigue. That's what we do. Everyone.
I do think Stephen is totally right here in terms of there's no magic bullet time, but it is helpful to think about literally when is your targeted demographic going to be awake? First of all, that's very helpful if you're live streaming to an EU audience versus a US audience versus an Asian audience. These things will change what time you'll be able to do your live streams effectively. So thinking in terms of geographic placements and how and where and when people might be awake, and before going to work, after going to work, or during a meal time, these might be good times to think about doing your live streams.
And being mindful that your views following a live stream generally go up 2 to 3x following, especially on LinkedIn. I'm seeing 2 to 3 to 4x times the views following the actual live.
Yeah, that is also a great point. That's what we see as well. So we report on the number of views right after and the concurrent views, the peak, and then probably 2 weeks to 3 weeks after, because we just see it go steadily up for a little while.
And this is a great time for me to jump in and say, if you are trying to convince whoever is your higher up that you should do LinkedIn Lives and you want to show really strong numbers, make sure that when you do a test stream or a test series, that you are capturing those later numbers as well. So you can say, listen, we had these numbers during the live stream, but then up to 48 hours after the live stream, then we got these total numbers. So being able to capture and show those numbers is also a good way to sell your team on doing more live streams.
Yes.
Yeah. I sound like a broken record on these broadcasts, but marketers tend to measure way too quickly. And this is true with all different ad types, like sponsored content, video ads, same with live stream. You can measure it right before, but just know that if you measure it as time goes on, you'll see a steady increase as well, especially if you continue to kind of repurpose it, which we'll talk about in a second. So are there any best practices for what to do right before a broad scene? Stephen, you had mentioned earlier that you kind of come in hot with engaging the audience right on, so they know that you're going to be doing that throughout.
Yeah. Also too, engaging the audience is definitely important. I make it a practice to encourage people to say hello and share where they're tuning in from. And then also invite them to ask questions and asking them questions. Now, with live stream, there's generally a 10 to 15 second delay between the time I'm speaking and the time you're actually hearing. So I will generally ask a question or encourage or instructors or guests to ask questions, but continue talking to allow for time for somebody to respond. And knowing that you're still going to go ahead and touch on a said topic, but you're fueling that engagement early and often. And I see it tends to help more people coming into the stream, the more engagement that happens early.
Yeah, exactly. And so just some things that we did before this broadcast, we all logged on early. We tested our internet. Some of us had to restart our internet, just really small things like that to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success.
You know, we touched on, I'd mentioned a minute ago about hashtags. And I didn't want to dismiss this because it's really important inside LinkedIn. If you are somebody that's researching, you should be researching your hashtags that you're choosing and being sure that you're using the right ones. Now, if you went ahead and just clicked on any hashtag, pick a post, click on a hashtag, it's going to bring you to a page that actually shows you how many people on LinkedIn are following that hashtag. Now, the difference between two terms can be wide, right? For example, the hashtag brand only has 78,000 followers, but the hashtag branding has over 18 million. Marketer has 2,200 followers, but marketing has over 20 million followers. So you just need to be mindful of the different tags you're using for your stream. Goldie touched on using your own hashtags, but make sure you're also peppering in some tags that will bring new traffic, new organic traffic to your stream.
And since we're on the subject of hashtags, one of the things that I tell people when they ask, should I have then 5 million unique hashtags that I've made up myself? And no, for exactly the reason that Stephen just mentioned, is people aren't searching for those hashtags if they're brand new. So my general best practice is to have one dedicated hashtag for that live stream that is specific for your brand or that particular series, and then use these other great hashtags that can then boost your live stream and boost your brand. And just a technical thing, in case you're wondering, well, where do I find these hashtags? One way to find them is to click through hashtags that already exist on other people's content. And then, of course, we have the beautiful, nifty LinkedIn search bar. That's where you'll type in a hashtag like hashtag brand or hashtag branding, and then you can see how many times people are searching for that term.
Yeah, that's a great point. Goldie has a daily hashtag. I believe is it hashtag daily Goldie?
Yep.
Yeah, so she posts an inspirational quote every day, hashtag daily Goldie, which I love. And I commented on one recently. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I was like, these are amazing hashtag golden nuggets. Do you call your followers hashtag goldfish? Which I think you should.
I wish I had like a bag of goldfish right now so I could bring it up and be like, and we could drop in that lower third that says, you know, buy goldfish.
Product placement. Yeah.
Product placement.
Okay. So what about like, is there a length that is too short? Or is there a length that is too long? Because we're getting a lot of questions about length, so I just want to throw that in there as we're talking through.
We want to get beyond 15 minutes. We definitely want to get beyond 15 minutes in a stream. And I have found that concurrent views are going to vary throughout the stream, but it needs to be as long as it needs to be. And I have gone to hour on live streams and seen the concurrent views actually start to increase. So as long as you're providing value, it can be as long as it needs to be. Personally, in my opinion, I try to stay within that 30 minute to an hour mark for a stream, but I've seen streams go longer and still remain pretty engaging.
And I love this idea that concurrent views go up and down. So if you are worried that you are not getting the right number of views during any point in your stream, you can keep going. So it's really nice to be able to stream for a little bit longer so you can give people time to check out your stream, but also give them time to stay in your stream.
Yeah, perfect. And then during the broadcast, we touched on this a bit, but engaging your audience. We did a poll. We'll do another poll shortly. We're incentivizing people to ask questions by offering LinkedIn swag. Just an examples from stuff that we actually do, and having someone from your social team to moderate your stream to help pull in those most relevant questions, to answer any like housekeeping notes and stuff like that. And just having fun. If you're having fun creating the content and having the conversation, it's likely that your audience will have fun watching. So don't forget to have a good time. All right, what about after? We talked a bit about repurposing, and I think that this is such an important, because there's so much work that goes into like the prep and getting the speakers and like, you know, figuring out the audience. So after it's done, what are the ways that you can kind of keep giving from this?
So I think that there's a few ways to think about repurposing your LinkedIn live stream content. I'll give a few that I've done myself, and then also that I've given to others as best practices. So my live streams, once they become a VOD, a video on demand, they go immediately onto my YouTube channel. And then what I'll do is, if there was an interesting clip, if somebody said something very fun, I will go ahead and take out that clip and I'll put it onto either back onto LinkedIn as a new unique post, yay, more content, or I will put it onto a different social network. I'll put on Twitter, I'll put on Instagram, I'll put it where it makes sense to have that additional content. And one thing that everyone forgets, except for maybe the beautiful podcasters out there, is that you can turn your LinkedIn lives into blog posts, into SEO friendly text content.
Yeah,
100%.
That's a great point. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
100%. I love all that Goldie shared, and we are constantly experimenting over at Sans with where we can repurpose that content. So we absolutely make use of blogs. We are taking shorter clips of that. We're beginning to experiment now with the shorts for things like TikTok and Instagram, and just looking at different ways to repurpose that live stream. You touched on the blogs. You can also take a platform like a Repurpose IO and different platforms out there that allow you to shift the audio from that video into a podcast pretty seamlessly. So there's a number of ways. Now, that's ways to repurpose the content. I also find that, you know, the engagement, so the conversations we're having, we also find value in engaging with those guests in other ways. So within Sans, we're inviting them to come speak at events, at our summit events, or maybe even exploring ways that some of these guests might become instructors within our cohort here. So many different benefits that come on the back end of a stream that you have to give thought to.
And I love this continuing the relationship with people that you talk to on a live stream. It shouldn't be a one and done, as I'll call it. I myself write for Forbes and occasionally for other publications. So I love keeping a catalog of people that I've talked to on live streams, or when I'm hosting or guesting on a different live stream, to know all those people. So I might pull them into an article later. I might pull them into a speaking event later, or a panel where they can also be another guest. It is a wonderful way to build a database. And who doesn't love databases?
Yes, it's definitely a great networking opportunity. And hopefully, if you guys like me, we'll work again too.
We're waiting for our hoodies.
Okay. It's a give and take. I see. Yeah, so someone just popped in a little bit late. They were asking what concurrent views are. That's just when the most folks are on the stream, right?
Yeah, it's the most people that are on at the same point in time.
Right. Yeah, perfect. Okay, what about video don'ts? We don't want to take a turn to negative town, but are what are the things that just make you cringe? Like the things that folks should absolutely not do during a live stream?
Having a big, well-lit window right behind.
Yeah, lighting is important. That's true.
You want to make sure that if there's anything causing audio disturbance around you, for example, if you have a big fan or you have other machinery that you can't control, can control around you, that you turn that off during the live stream, because you'll have a hum or you'll have that undertone of noise. So you want to make sure everything you can do to have very clean audio, because clean audio is the best. So we want to make sure that we do that for a live stream, but also framing. So we have all been there. We've had people walk in and out of our frames, let's be honest. But it's helpful to have a space that most people know this is the dedicated live stream space. Please don't enter into it while we're talking on camera.
Yeah. Another pro tip is, if you have a dog, give them a bone. That's literally what I did right before this broadcast, because otherwise my dog will start crying because I'm not giving him enough attention. All right, those are all really great points. Marketers at home, remember not to do any of those things.
It's also really important on what we talked about earlier to make sure you are clear coming into the stream. What's the topic that you're going to discuss, and what's the key takeaway you're trying to drive home? Make sure you have clarity on that before you start the stream, so that you're not wandering all over the place and you are adding value to the people who are tuning in. You want to make sure you're not a one-hit wonder. You want to make sure people are coming back to future streams that you have. So making sure you stay on point. Goldie talked earlier about this a good bit, but you just have to make sure you're adding that value for that very defined group of people that are tuning in. I think
about it that when you are making a series, a beautiful series, it is your umbrella. And that's the very general subject. And then what Stephen is discussing is, underneath our umbrella, we have our little spokes, and each spoke should be a very clearly defined show. So if you are talking about automotive, I don't know, I keep going back to this, you will want to make sure that each spoke is clearly defined. So you'll have a show specifically on Tesla maintenance, on all of these very clearly defined things underneath your broader automotive umbrella.
Alex, I think Goldie is saying she's buying us Teslas.
That's what I was going to say too. I was like, are we getting Teslas?
Surprise!
Yay! It's under your chair.
I know. Reach under your chairs, guys. Everyone has a Tesla.
You get a Tesla. You get it.
Yeah. Yes, I think focus is very important, and it's also like a good broadcast is kind of like telling a story. Like, people want a beginning, a middle, and an end. So if you can kind of like spell that out for them, people feel a little bit more comfortable following along, rather than just kind of like sporadically, going off on tangents. But speaking of tangents, let's talk about the next topic, which is identifying KPIs and proving value. So second poll question, I'm going to knock it back over to the audience and ask, what is your main objective when live streaming? Assuming that you are live streaming, which some of our audience is not quite there yet. But if you are, what's your main objective? Is it brand awareness, thought leadership or consideration, lead gen or conversion, or for none of the above? In which case, I'm curious of why you're doing live streams. What do we, I'll give you a couple seconds to respond. Our lovely audience, Goldie and Stephen, what do you guys think we're gonna hear?
A and C.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of folks who want to understand how you can convert directly a live stream into lead gen, but also I think how you can increase your thought leadership in the space that you're currently in.
Okay, let's take a look here. All right, it looks like the majority are going after thought leadership.
Wow.
Which is good and a surprise, because I thought that it was going to be lead gen, because I feel like B2B marketers are so focused on lead gen sometimes. So I am delightfully surprised. And both of you guys were wrong, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much.
So thought leadership is number one, followed by lead gen, followed by brand awareness, and a small percentage of none of the above. If you said none of the above, can you share in the comments what is your objective of live streaming? Because I'm very curious. Maybe there's just something I haven't thought of that's not included here. But from a B2B marketer's perspective, I feel like these are the main ones. So thought leadership, that's wonderful because everybody knows that you can't fill the bottom of the funnel if you're not filling the top. Exactly. And I feel like this video format is the best way for folks to get to know your company's leaders and just have a little bit of a more unique connection to you rather than just looking at your ads. Okay, live stream performance. What do you guys measure?
Things you just touched on.
What do you measure? Okay, so let's break it down. What do you measure for awareness?
Reach, views, right? So let's take a step back. It is really what is available to you to be able to measure with live stream. It's still a relative, we're talking about the fatigue with it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still a relatively new medium of content. And so there are many social platforms, many tools that we're using to stream on that still have not yet matured on the analytics, the granular details that many of us as marketers are wanting to dial into. So I will tell you there's a messy middle right there on all of the details not yet being available, whether through a platform, if you're leveraging a platform like a Restream or a StreamYard, or even many of the social platforms, right? There's still opportunity for growth in that area. So based on what is available, obviously looking at the concurrent views, trying to gauge how long somebody's staying in your stream. But the big thing is that total view, right? I think we talked about it earlier. How many people actually came into the live and how many people have come into the live 48 hours after, a week after, a month after, and seeing what that did for you for growth of that particular piece of content. Goldie, I'll let you jump in and chime in.
I think I want to do a couple of really quick definitions first. So when we're thinking about brand awareness, when I'm thinking about brand awareness with the clients and the brands that I work with, it's to me how far it went, right? How big was that physical reach? That's why we're talking about how many eyeballs were on it, how many likes did it get, and all of those engagement metrics. When we're thinking about something like thought leadership, it's how deep did it go in that vertical? So how many people are you getting who are specifically commenting and giving reactions, dropping into your inbox about that specific subject matter? So if we want to go back again, now with that, we know our definitions to brand awareness. It's really how far can we make sure that that live stream is going? Can we maybe reshare that live stream? But specifically on LinkedIn, as Stephen so intelligently mentioned, we maybe don't have as many deep analytics. So it's helpful to simply look at how many views there were, how many likes there were, how many comments. And then when we think about thought leadership, what were those comments actually about? What were those later emails or private messages about? Were they about what you want to be known for, or what you want that brand to be known for?
Right. And it is a little bit more difficult with live streams to, right now, maybe just to look at some lower funnel downstream metrics, because we are doing live video. It's not like an ad with multi-touch attribution. Like, I don't know who watched and then went to the website, then contacted a rep. But there's a lot that can be inferred, right? And in addition to the concurrent number, total minutes watched, number of views, you can also, for a specific piece of content or live stream, you can look at drop-off rate, which might be helpful in understanding, is this topic really relevant for our audience as well?
There's something that I'm testing right now, and I've been doing a bit more in the last couple months, and that's embedding. So within the stream, we have the ability to show links directly in the lower thirds. But what I've actually been doing is peppering in those links directly in the organic comments of each social platform. So I would share a link, a short URL that I can track directly in the comments. And so sometimes I'm able to actually look at how many people are actually clicking through to a particular page based on, you know, our call to action. So that's something else that's very helpful as well. But to your point, it's hard, right? It's hard to figure out the bottom of the funnel. We all know the more traffic we drive in at the top, right, the more opportunity we have as we move further down.
And it's helpful to also compare live streams. What Alex was saying, if you see that there's a few subjects that just don't work for your overall goals, and you're not getting the views, you're not getting likes or comments, maybe that's a subject to shy away from a little bit more as compared to other live streams that do better. A lot of this, of course, is common sense for marketers.
Absolutely. And just to give our audience an idea of what a short link looks like, it would be great if our team could reshare the short link for Steven's podcast. And that way they can get, there we go, perfect. So you can use Bitly if you'd like. This is the LinkedIn specific short link generator, but you can create a short link, drop it in, and then folks can follow it. If you want to get real fancy, you can also add in UTM tracking parameters around it, which I won't get into that right now, but there's more info on our blog around UTM tracking parameters. That way you can see where the traffic came from when they're clicking through to your site. Another thing that we do here at LinkedIn is we have a series of emails that we send out for our broadcast. So there's a landing page where people can register, right? And then there's a series of 3 email campaigns. One is, hi, you registered. Yay, we're excited. Save it to your calendar. The second is a reminder. So like 2 or 3 days out, remember that you registered for this, come and find out XYZ. And then the third is a follow-up that goes out a couple days after the broadcast with the broadcast recording and any relevant materials that you might have mentioned during the broadcast or would be helpful that are relevant towards the topic, or to register for your blog, which is one of our tricky tactics as well.
And I definitely want to add something since you just said the follow-up. So when we're thinking about follow-up, we want to make sure that we have a good call to action. If you're going to follow up, you should give them something to do that helps further your brand.
Perfect. We are surprisingly nearing the end of our broadcast. And so I want to get to enough questions. So how about just like maybe a one-liner from both of you guys on where you think the future of broadcasting going? Is this a fad? Are we all going to be over it by the time that COVID is over? Or is it going to be something that continues? What's the future?
Let Steven go first on this one.
Sure. I think this is here to stay. I think Zoom has definitely retrained us on how we engage in this talking head type format, and people want more interactivity. They want to engage. It's not that they won't sit through a long form live stream with you or a webcast. You know, most people won't sit through a 45-minute to hour long webcast, but they'll gladly sit through a very engaging live stream with you for the same hour, because they can have ongoing dialogue with you and see your reactions and engage with you. So, you know, that's my thoughts there.
So right before this, I actually did a keynote on online and offline events and how that can grow your brand. So obviously I am a big fan of broadcasts and thinking, especially in this new world where so many of us are now used to tuning in online, how can you further use that even as we start to go back to having offline events? I believe personally that broadcasts are here to stay. And one of the things that I did mention in my keynote is to think about what data can you pull from broadcasts, and what, for example, what information can you pull from broadcasts that help you later grow your brand, like say an email list.
Yeah.
So instead of one or the other, it's the hybrid of both.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, let's get to, we had some amazing questions. Everyone wants that LinkedIn hoodie. That's what's going on here. I can see it, but we have a lot of great questions, so I want to make sure to get to them. I will remind you once more, and it should be live on your screen, that we have a survey. Again, would love to hear from you. What are we doing well? What do you want to hear about next time? So questions. This Norman says, gotta go. My boss is going live on good old-fashioned radio. Thanks. That was fun and instructive. Thank you, Norman, for that. That made me smile. Marie asks, how far in advance do you recommend promoting the live stream, and do you recommend boosting with the reach with paid?
I don't really have a specific timeline on how far out. The earlier the better. It gives you more runway to promote it. But I've also experimented with going live within the course of a day and seen tremendous results from that as well. So
I think it's whatever your audience is used to is also a helpful way to think about it. So when I partner with a brand like Adobe, we're announcing this live stream as early as possible, maybe even a month ahead of time. For my own personal channel, where my beautiful audience is more used to me jumping on and doing a live pretty quickly after the announcement, I can get away with announcing it even a day before. I usually like to do a week, so that gives them time to put it into their calendar. And as Stephen mentioned before, it is also just extremely helpful if you know that you are going to go live on a certain day and time every week. So even if you're not announcing, they know to tune in at that day and time.
Love it. Yeah, we typically start promoting ours, I would say, a month before, because if you're setting up sponsored content, which definitely recommend doing, because you can reach people outside of just your LinkedIn page followers, it takes around 2 weeks to see real significant results from those ads. And then you might have time to like optimize and tweak something so that the remaining 2 weeks before the broadcast, you can gain a little bit more traction. So that is my advice to you. Jim asks, are green screens obvious? Tacky? Question mark.
So I'll say right before we jumped on this, the technician for this, for the producer for the show, asked Stephen if he is on a green screen. Which Stephen, please reach back and show us live.
It's real. It's real.
I would love it actually if you reached back and then it was a green screen.
Yeah, I in our experience, we use actual backgrounds. I've never had experience with a green screen, although for our LinkedIn learning courses, we use green screens.
Yes, I'm on blue screen on LinkedIn learning courses.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Our production, the producer for this show is chatting me right now saying green screen equals no. So green screen equals no, apparently.
So another thing to keep in mind is a lot of the platforms you'll leverage to actually stream. Again, there are many different platforms out there. A lot of us use StreamYard or a Restream, and you don't actually have, it's a little bit more complicated to leverage use of a green screen. So a lot of people will tend to just leverage their existing background and just keep it clean.
Okay, perfect. The next question will be, let's see, I gotta pick a good one. How do you deal, Elton asks, how do you deal with a certain audience who gives negative feedback to the streamer in the chat during a live stream show, and the live streamer didn't know? So I guess just how do you deal with negative feedback, like during a show, like if you have a heckler, for example?
This is when it's helpful to have a moderator. So having someone else on your team who is in the chat who can answer negative questions. And to be honest, a lot of negative questions I've noticed are usually not as bad as people think, and they want attention. So they want somebody just to respond to them. And it's helpful to have somebody who can respond directly in chat to them. So you don't always need to pull up that message on live and on the live stream, or make, say, if you are hosting a panel or have an interview, make your guests answer that negativity. And like all social media platforms, there will always be trolls who just want to spam your live stream comments. And I find the best way to deal with that is if somebody posts 20 just negative, angry things in a row, you don't need to acknowledge that, especially on the live stream itself. You can simply acknowledge that in chat, or the best thing about having a great audience is your audience will self-police.
Yeah.
That has certainly happened, but not every action needs or deserves a reaction. So yeah, if someone is heckling, they might just be looking for attention. So you don't just take everything with a grain of salt.
100%.
Okay, I think we have time for one more, and this is an interesting one. Is there a way to predict live streaming fatigue before it happens and pivot to help retain and even continue to grow your audience before it's too late?
Well, I think you mentioned a survey that you guys are doing, and I think that's amazing. Engage with your audience. Ask them what kind of content they're looking for, what problems they're trying to solve, and work to create content based on that. I love to co-create content in that way, both my live streams as well as from a podcast. I love to engage with the people who are in the community on the other side. Get them in the DMs, slide into the DMs, engage with them, get them on a call, ask them what they're working through, what's keeping them up at night, and begin to think through when you're having these conversations. And, Goldie can speak to the problem that Johnny is having, right? I now move from being the host to trying to figure out how to get Goldie to speak to Johnny's problems.
Yeah, exactly. And we do polls throughout that kind of helps as a litmus test of where should we drive the conversation to. So that's another good way. That is actually all the time we have for today. We're 1 minute over. So thank you so much to our audience for tuning in and being so engaging throughout the broadcast. I'm going to go ahead and pick one of our audience members who submitted a question to get a hoodie, and I'll be reaching out to get a little bit more about your information. We hope that you learned something today for yourself to take back to your team. And again, Goldie and Steven, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful that you took the time.
Thanks for having us.
And I'm supposed to give a round of applause to Alex at the end of this. So I'm contractually obligated to do so. So Steven and I will now give our round of applause.
Okay, that was supposed to be after, not on air. But thank you, Goldie, for your contractual obligation to give me positive feedback. I appreciate that. Okay, so the next broadcast is actually November 28th. We are revealing new thought leadership research that we partnered with Edelman on. So it should be super interesting. Again, that's November 28th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Keep an eye on our blog for the registration link and more info about who our speakers will be. And we'll also send a follow-up email in the next couple of days with the recording and some of the resources that we mentioned here, such as Goldie's LinkedIn Learning page and Steven's podcast page. Thank you so much to everyone, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.